You are listening to Mostaccioli Murder, Book 1 of the Jade Sommer series, written by Nicolette Pierce. Copyright 2020. Audio copyright 2025 by Pierced Heart Publishing. Digitally narrated with full cast of voices. Chapter 4. I was just about to put the leftovers into the refrigerator and head to the hospital when Mom arrived home. Her blonde hair that had been twisted into a braid was falling out, making her look as though she had barely escaped a tornado. When did she last sleep? I wasn't expecting you home yet, I said. Are you hungry? I've got dumplings and rice.
From Lee's.
Where else would I go for dumplings? A faint smile appeared, slightly lightening the heaviness of her expression.
Yes, I'll take some.
I grabbed a plate and a fork and brought everything to the table. How's Dad?
He's fine. Well, as fine as he can be.
She sat down and folded her arms along the table, content to have me wait on her. After being in the restaurant business since she married Dad at the ripe age of 20, she deserved for someone else to wait on her for a change.
They have him so drugged he doesn't even know who's in the room with him. He was having a conversation with the heart monitor. Thought it was Uncle Frank.
That might be something I'd want to witness and record. She gave a dismissive wave.
I figured he was in good hands and I'm exhausted. When he gets home, I'll need energy to take care of him.
I'm here too.
About that,
She hesitated. Is there something wrong?
have you seen your room?
No. Why?
You might not want to stay here. You're, of course, more than welcome, but you might be more comfortable at a hotel or with Aunt Dot and Uncle Frank. Go look and see for yourself.
I left the food with Mom and walked down the small hallway to my bedroom. The entire apartment wasn't very large. Living above the restaurant made commutes a snap, but it didn't allow for much space. At least, growing up, I'd had a room. Poor Ross had slept in the living room closet. His choice. As a child, he had abandoned our shared room, stating I kept him up with my snoring. He slept in the walk-in closet until he moved out when he was 18. Then he shared an apartment with Logan for a while. Shaking off my thoughts, I opened the door to my old room to find it filled. Along one wall was a desk topped with a sewing machine. A treadmill covered with bolts of fabric was stationed along another wall. Stacked boxes filled in the remaining space. No bed. No spot on the floor to put an air mattress. My safety net was withering. Still, there was the couch. I'd make do. When I returned to the kitchen and sat at the square table, Mom eyed me.
Sorry, I kept my sewing in my bedroom for a while, but it was taking over. And Dad wanted a treadmill, but you can see how often that gets used.
It's okay. I can sleep on the couch. I'm glad you're using the room. She smiled and patted my hand.
Thank you. I didn't want you to think you aren't welcome here. And there's always Aunt Dot's place if you change your mind.
When I cringed, she laughed.
I thought you'd still be working. Was it a slow day at the restaurant? Or did Wayne finally show up?
No one told you?
Told me what?
Wayne is dead. Didn't you see the police tape in the garbage area?
Oh,
She said, bringing a hand to her heart.
I was so wrapped up in my thoughts I didn't even notice. That's horrible. Wayne was so young. Was it an accident?
No, I can honestly say I doubt this was an accident. I found him with a knife in his chest. Her eyes widened.
He was murdered?
Logan is investigating it, but I don't see how it couldn't be murder. She shook her head.
Poor Wayne. Oh, and his wife and kids. They must be devastated.
Wife and kids? I questioned, thinking about the woman I had delivered a pizza to earlier.
And she's pregnant too.
Mom continued.
I know Wayne needed this job to make ends meet. How is she going to survive with a fourth kid to raise?
I had snuck a peek at Sommer's place. Nothing about it said kids lived there. And unless she was in her first trimester, I doubted she was pregnant, which meant yet another cheater. I'd say Wayne got what he deserved, but murder is a bit harsh. Mom stood with a flash of energy she had been devoid of moments ago.
We'll have to figure out a plan for Jalen and the kids. We have plenty of food they can have. We'll start up a collection, put a donation box in the restaurant.
Mom, I said, gaining her attention from saving the destitute family. It's getting late, and you looked like you were about to pass out a minute ago. Eat dinner, go to bed, and I'll help however you want tomorrow. But if she's hearing the news about her husband tonight, I doubt she'd want a flock of well-wishers beating down her door. Mom sat back down.
I suppose you're right. We can enlist Aunt Dot's help tomorrow, too.
I groaned. I know we're family, but how can you deal with Aunt Dot every day?
She means well, and her food is excellent. Without her, I'm sure we'd have to shut down the restaurant. Plus, she's not that bad. She's just frustrated with Frank.
She's been frustrated with him since I can remember. Why not divorce him? Mom shrugged.
I have no idea, but she must have her reasons. Anyway, she has a good heart underneath all the bluster.
I supposed Mom had a point. Aunt Dot did seem to care. She was just very bossy about it. Mom and I spoke a little longer as she ate dinner, but after a few bites her eyelids began to droop. Go to bed, I said.
Yeah, I suppose I should. I'll get you sheets and blankets for the couch.
I know where everything is. I can do it. She stood with a yawn and then patted my head.
You're a good girl.
Thanks, I said, even though I was cringing inside. When she shuffled off to bed, I put the food away and placed the plate and fork in the dishwasher. I then dug my laptop out of my carry-on bag and sat on the couch. First order of business was to find a job, and fast. I opened my search globally and filtered for anything in the advertising world. Many jobs were listed, but they were for entry-level positions. I was not going to start from the bottom again. I had wasted too many years pandering to some buffoon stuffed in a suit. After several minutes of searching, I finally found 2 openings. One was a lateral move, and one would be a step up. Both were far from Chicago. I spruced up my resume and sent it to both companies. I then checked my email. It was mostly junk, but there was one message that read SOS. It was from my assistant, Mila. I hadn't been able to talk to her before I left. It had all happened so suddenly, and I fled as soon as I was fired. I wouldn't say Mila and I were close, but she was a good assistant, and kept the office lively with her uniqueness. If I hadn't been fired, I could have seen myself staying at the company for a long time. But Alan had sabotaged me. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake, a horrible blunder. But the clues piled up, and I knew Alan had done it on purpose. Alan had said the ad campaign was solid. I didn't think so when he first presented the idea. I mean, how would a slogan like, "Stank yourself," sell? But he'd said he'd bet his career on it. And in the advertising world, Alan was known for taking slogans that one wouldn't think would resonate, and then making them the next household saying. If he said it would work, it would work. It didn't. The client lost money. The brand took a dive, and so did the stocks. They were in financial ruin because an ad campaign had gone horribly wrong. Since I was the lead, I was the scapegoat. I was fired and kicked out of the building before I could do much more than grab my purse. And then to make everything that much worse, I went home to find Alan and his executive assistant naked on the dining room table. It was a good thing I didn't have a knife, or he would have ended up like Wayne. I paused at that thought. Could Jalen have found out Wayne was having an affair and knifed him? It was plausible. She wouldn't have been the first to do something similar. And with pregnancy hormones? Yep. I was pretty sure Jalen killed Wayne, which made me very curious about her. ignoring the SOS email since I was completely stalling on knowing the latest details after my dismissal. I texted Ross to find out Wayne's last name. He texted back moments later with the name Wilmer. I searched the internet for Jalen Wilmer. She popped up on 2 social media websites. I scoured them, looking for anything that would give me a clue about her character. She was a pretty brunette who looked a bit frazzled with 3 kids hanging off her. And she didn't look anything like the woman I had delivered pizza to. Either way, Jalen didn't look like a murderer. She looked like a mom who was tired and needed a spa day and a gallon jug of wine. But if she didn't kill him, who did? The girlfriend? No, she seemed genuinely upset when I arrived instead of him. I briefly thought I should tell Logan about Wayne's girlfriend, but I wasn't about to talk to him. According to Ross, Logan was a good detective. If that was the case, he'd probably already know about the girlfriend by now. Pulling the card from my pocket, I stared at Logan's name. I had dreaded the day I'd see him again. Every time I came home, I thought that would be the time I'd see him. But it took a murder for our worlds to bump into each other again. Seeing Logan hadn't been as terrible as I thought it was going to be. Instead of tossing the card into the garbage like was my first reaction, I dropped it onto the coffee table. I told myself it was in case Mom needed him. I shook off the lingering thought about Logan and returned my attention to Mila's email. The SOS made me suspect bad things, but it couldn't be that bad. I had already been fired, and my assistant and I had always been on good terms. She was probably just confused about the situation and was reaching out. Opening the email, I scanned. Yep, she was confused, as was the rest of the office. Some staff had threatened to walk off the job because of my termination, but no one did. My position was already filled. By Alan's executive assistant, Stacy. A twitch in my eye made further reading impossible. With shaking hands, I shoved the laptop onto the cushion next to me for fear of hurtling it into the TV. This couldn't be happening. It took years of long hours and late nights to get promoted. I had sacrificed weekends. Friendships and family were put on the back burner, and all I'd really had to do was sleep with the boss for a shortcut. I couldn't stay in the apartment. I had to walk. I had to think. I had to punch something. Sliding on my shoes, I grabbed my phone and spare key and shoved them into my pocket. I then headed down the back stairs and outside, where some of the summer heat still lingered. The darkness of the city nearly made me turn back, but I was too furious to let that stop me. And at this stage of my fury, it'd be a bad idea for anyone to try to mug me. Locking the door, I turned to leave the alley. The police tape reminded me that even in my anger, I should still be mindful of my surroundings. I walked past the garbage area, knowing Wayne was probably in the morgue, but still I stole a peek to make sure.
Returning to the scene of the crime?
I turned to find Logan standing just inside the shadows of the building. His arms were crossed, and his eyes looked as black as the asphalt. "Don't be stupid," I said, "and stop trying to look menacing. You can't pull it off." He actually could, but I didn't want to let his ego know that. The fact was, Logan slipped into his role of detective too well. It made him somehow hotter, which wasn't fair at all.
I'm serious. What are you doing here?
"You think I killed Wayne?" He stepped away from the wall, coming into the light of the street lamp that was dotted with dead bugs.
Many criminals go back to the scene of a crime.
"Is that why you're lurking out here? Maybe you killed him and you're returning to the scene of the crime." A corner of his mouth kicked up into a smile.
The dirty cop angle. Haven't heard that one before.
Sarcasm. Haven't heard that before either. His smile grew.
What are you really doing out here?
"I need to walk."
Now?
"Yes, now." I turned and headed to the sidewalk. I heard his footsteps following me. "Go away."
I will.
I still heard his footsteps. "When?" I asked.
When you go home.
I'm not going home, not yet anyway.
Then I'm walking with you until you do.
Don't you have a criminal to catch?
I'll catch them later.
Pretty confident, I said as I turned to walk across the street. I wasn't sure where I was going. Maybe I'd just walk a few blocks up and see if Mrs. Pitts still had cats roaming around her stoop. I always liked to see the menagerie of feral cats. I could never get too close, though. They had a tendency to tolerate only Mrs. Pitts. No one else could touch them.
You miss this place, don't you?
Logan said, still a couple of steps behind me.
You're going to see the cats. You've already been to Mr. Lee's, and now you're going to Mrs. Pitts. Just admit you miss this place.
I'll admit I don't miss you or your obnoxiousness. He didn't say anything, but I knew he wouldn't be quiet for long. My luck wasn't that good. The fact was, I did miss things about my home. Who wouldn't? The sound of a mewing kitten caught my attention, and I knew I'd find the cats exactly where I remembered they'd be. Even in the dim light, I spotted a few sprawled cats on the stoop and on the thick stone railing. One was on a window ledge. 3 slunk through the tiny space between the brick buildings. But where was the kitten I heard?
Over there.
Logan said in a hushed tone that made my skin tingle. He stepped closer, invading my personal space and pointing to a cracked flower pot that was tipped over. I crept over to take a better look. 3 tiny gray and white furballs were curled up inside. Oh, they are so sweet. The porch light flipped on and Mrs. Pitts yanked open the door. She was crotchety and old the last time I had seen her, and she didn't look like she had changed much, just a different floral housecoat.
Leave the cats alone, or I'll call the cops.
I glanced back at Logan. Want to tell her, or shall I?
Neither.
He said, taking my hand, which I resisted, but his steely grip made it impossible. I thought he was going to usher me back home and tell me to stay, like some misbehaving dog. But he surprised me by changing course and heading to the park. He let go as soon as we were out of Mrs. Pitts's range. You didn't have to strangle my hand, I said, shaking it to bring back the blood supply.
Mrs. Pitts causes daily headaches at the station. I'd have to bring dessert to the station for a month if anyone found out I was the one who made her call the police yet again.
I'd give him that. Mrs. Pitts's favorite phrase was, "I'll call the cops." We walked across the train tracks and into the park, following the path along it until we reached the river. It was a path we used to walk when we were together. Now it just felt foreign, cold. Logan must have had the same thought since he said,
We should head back.
I glanced down at the river. The water was black in the night. Only some shimmering ripples from the moon glinted. Yeah, I said. It was probably better. I was getting tired. And the sting of the email wasn't as sharp as it had been, though it still hurt. I should have known Alan would pull something like that. If I had been watching the drama unfold on TV, the reveal wouldn't have shocked me at all. Of course, the flirty assistant was going to sleep her way into my position. I was an idiot not to see it ahead of time. I led the way back home with Logan one step behind me. I wasn't sure why he didn't try to walk next to me, but I was thankful for the space. Do people shock you? I asked Logan.
What do you mean?
I shrugged. You're a detective. I'm sure you've seen a ton of horrible and foolish things. Do people shock you anymore?
Not often.
I wondered what his daily life must be like, but then I remembered he was Logan and I didn't care. We walked the rest of the way in silence, which didn't help stop my swirling thoughts about Alan and his assistant, and Logan and the past. Was I doomed to make horrible choices in partners? Did I look for the wrong men on purpose? I had heard about people who make bad choices subconsciously. Was I one of those people? We reached the back alleyway, and I headed to the door, trying to ignore the garbage area. However, it was like not wanting to look at roadkill, and then at the last second looking at it. I looked. but there was nothing to see except for police tape. Unlocking the door, I glanced back at Logan. You going home or lurking?
Are you asking because you want to revisit the crime scene when I'm gone? Or because you care?
Neither. I just don't like people lurking under my window when I'm trying to sleep.
Your window faces the road.
Not anymore. It's been taken over by a sewing machine and a treadmill. I'm couching it.
Then I promise not to lurk.
Just as I was about to step inside, he said,
It was nice seeing you again.
I glanced back. You know I'll never return that sentiment.
I know. But if this is the last time I see you, I just didn't want to leave it the same way we did last time.
You mean when you were in bed with Mindy? His eyes narrowed for a moment, but then he gave a nod. I walked through the door and then locked it behind me. It took me several seconds for my heart rate to return to normal. Why did he have to sound as if he cared? Did I care? No, I wasn't going down that road. Yes, there were obviously some lingering emotions, but I had a career to get back on track. I walked up the stairs and plopped onto the couch. Logan's card stared at me from the coffee table. With a sigh, I picked it up and read his number. I entered it into my phone to text him. Wayne was cheating on his wife. I delivered pizza to her. Her name is Sommer. You can get the order information from Ross tomorrow. I figured since he hadn't been a total jerk today, I'd extend a courtesy. While I was a long way from forgiving him, I also felt it would be petty to withhold information related to a murder just because I didn't like the detective. After stowing the laptop into my bag, I got ready for bed and spread sheets and blankets onto the couch. Glancing at my phone, I saw that he hadn't texted back. That was fine. I didn't expect him to. But a thank you would have been polite. Hesitantly, I walked to the window and peered down at the alley. I couldn't see if he was down there, but a text message vibrated my phone. I glanced at it.
Go to sleep.
Stop lurking.
Night, Jade.
I returned to the couch and crawled between the covers, sighing with relief as the fatigue of the day eased away.